I'm Simon Marriott, I'm Deputy Subject Leader for Maths, and I work here at Real.
I'm Meg Sayfoo and I'm Subject Leader for Business and Economics here.
This presentation spins out from sessions Meg and I ran for a Thursday morning CPD session we have here that stemmed from a marking initiative that was introduced, when was it, back in January, after Christmas, and the different approaches we've taken to it. We put it RAGS to riches because we're using red, amber and green, and we like a pun. The idea is to talk about effective and impactful ways that you can deliver marking. So it's in two parts. My part comes first. It's live RAG marking, so I'll explain more about that in a second, but mine is something that you can do in lessons, on the go, and then Meg's going to talk to you about something that's a little bit more in depth, but we'll get there. So what's the philosophy behind what I'm doing here? Well, this is how we are when we join in September. You might notice it as we go through this. We join in the school in September, we get started, we're keen, we're ready to go, we want to make sure that our students have the best experience possible. We get to Christmas, we're feeling a little bit more stressed, the time is getting against us, we've got planning, we've got marking, we've got CPD to do, so we're kind of feeling a bit stretched more thinly. By the time of exams, we're fully at this point. We've got everything is getting on top of us, what we're going to do next, and by now, that's what we look like. Okay, we've had enough. It's the end of the year, and of course we promise ourselves that we will be like this in September, and next year it will be different. And marking is one of the key contributors to this. I don't know about you, but personally I find it's always the thing that gets shifted and shifted because I've got a meeting, or because I've got to plan a lesson, or deal with a student. And the idea behind red, amber, green RAG marking is to try and make marking effective, so that students get a lot from it, but that it doesn't take up a lot of your time. Now, I teach maths, and maths is a nice, easy subject for immediate feedback. So what did I do? Well, I started this when I was doing a mock exam with some of my Year 11s. They were struggling a bit, and rather than just sit down and say, it's a mock exam, if I'm with it, I'll mark it later, I picked up a set of highlighters and I was going around helping them out. And then I realised I could do this in normal lessons as well. So when students are working, and again, it's not really great in the light that we've got today, but you can go around, look at the work they're doing, and you can mark it using the highlighters. Red if it's incorrect, yellow if they've made a small error or there's something you want them to look at, and green if they've got it correct. They get immediate feedback. If they've made a mistake, so here this student, you might just about make out the yellow, had answered a whole row of questions that hadn't put in their units, in this case a degree sign. And instead of saying you've done that wrong, and lowering their self-esteem, you can just say, have another look here, what have you missed? And they're starting to think for themselves, you're supporting them, they're getting that immediate feedback. Here, you have to be a bit careful. So as this student has got a lot of their work right, they've made one mistake there, I put a yellow mark on it and they crossed it all out. So as the year's gone on, I've made more and more effort to say that the yellow means just have another look, what have you missed, what can you do differently? And it means that the student not only has immediate feedback and marking, but that when they're looking back over their work, they can remember, oh yes, I made that mistake, or okay, I need to be careful there, that's correct, I got that completely wrong, and they can identify where they need to revise. Some more examples here, so these are some more kind of advanced examples. This student got a question right, but they'd actually done some of the working incorrect. They've got some of the numbers the wrong way around, they've written out their working incorrectly, so I highlighted that red and said, look, that's a big no-no, you've got not a misconception in your skills, but you've got a misconception in how you're communicating that. Here, this is from an exam paper, and this answer is actually slightly incorrect, but they've done a correct part of their work. So I've highlighted the areas where they've gone wrong, I've made sure that there's a green highlight, so look, you've got the right idea, you've just done the wrong thing with it. So it's very versatile, you can use it while they're working, and as Mason will talk to you about after with their work beforehand. So what are the positives? Students get immediate feedback, okay? They're working, they're not waiting for you to list out all the answers at the end. They're getting that interaction, and because it's fairly quick and efficient, it means that you can get around a good chunk of the class in one go. And it also means that if you've spent a chunk of the lesson working with one student who was quite stuck, you can still give that feedback to others fairly promptly. It gives a focus when you're having a dialogue with students, either at parents' evenings or when you're thinking about reports, or just at any time when you're having that discussion with a student for one reason or another, whether they're struggling, whether they're working particularly well, whether they're lacking confidence. You can, if the students come to you saying, I'm rubbish at maths, I don't know what I'm doing in this setting, so let's look at your book, look at all this green here, you know what you're doing, you can see straight away that you should feel more confident. It helps when you're reviewing their work, so if you're marking their books afterwards, you can remember, okay, yeah, they were doing quite well in that lesson, and it helps you write your formative comment. And it can be used very carefully in formally assessed work. But I think with formally assessed work, you don't want to affect the outcome by pointing them in the right direction too specifically. And it does increase student enthusiasm. In the context of my Year 11s, that went from a lesson that was being quite tough, and I don't want to do this, I can't understand this. Actually, sir, can you come and check this? And students who haven't written anything will ask them to come back. There are some downsides, which I'll talk to in a second, but personally I think these sessions are always fun if you're doing something. And I'm sorry, I'm a maths teacher, so I'm going to ask you to do some maths. And what I'm going to do is give you, not for very long, and just to reassure you, I tried to find something that shouldn't be too intimidating. These are from the AQA kind of essential worksheets. AQA are at the moment considered the easiest of the 3 year examples.
Do you realise that makes it even more intimidating when you tell people this shouldn't be intimidating? Therefore, if you can't do the lowest mark question, don't feel intimidated.
I was trying to be reassuring. Basically, this is a key skills. So there's only 4 questions. Don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated by the tall person with the work. But yeah, just have a go. That's what you can do. And I'm going to come around and live mark. Now, as I would say with all my students who are doing assessments, this is not about what you can do, it's about improving you. What I want you to focus on is how it makes you feel, okay? Because that's obviously the key thing. We're going to put ourselves in the student's shoes here and see what you think the students feel. So I'm going to hand these around, and so, and we're going to see how you get on. So it won't take very long. Let's say 5-10 minutes. Right.
No cheating. That's your maths teacher. Yeah. So we don't have to work on that.
No, this is what you might be able to demonstrate. Can you explain? The problem was if I gave people stuff that wasn't, I wouldn't be able to do the marking. So it's
got some spots over here.
what does half mean? So if you're dividing something into 2 piles, then each pile has to be smaller than 3 piles. Their exam is going to be multiple choice.
Also, we were sure that
Two bags of camera.
Sorry.
yeah, but I'm petrified that I don't know things like that.
Yeah, I'm not actually expecting. Just for precision, I think you're reading it. Yeah. Well, see, that's, yeah. Was it, yeah, I mean, again, I wouldn't necessarily want to explain, but yeah, I mean, it's a fine line between explaining and showing.
Yeah.
Because, again, for students who are interested in the issue, this is why we construct GCSE. Demonstrate, probably you basically demonstrate quite rigorously. So, what we do, so, but it's not. I said, well, okay, we've got 110 there are. So it could have how many so what happened was the biggest, yeah, so they use 55, here, so this is so yeah, so half means I've got like 6. So dividing by 2 share 7 children, is there a KCB? Which is what you can and so then you've got the discussion of his heart, his mind, so you've got maybe 2 minutes. That would be the correct one. So yeah, that's correct, but if you read the exam, how do you explain that more efficiently? You can draw the picture, you can literally just say no, because it could be an extra 1. And half an extra number. So that would be sufficient. I think sometimes
It's not for me. I think it's something.
so you would just let's go and again, I would help to do develop so this is where
Yeah, and you might not revise
so you can start to look at the end. And then that's the same.
Is that the other name of the triangle?
So that's 120 is actually the key. If I run straight lines, we know that instead. So we can find that one. We'll know whether it's going to be isosceles. And then that remaining angle there is going to be some new question. Which one is that? Isosceles is 2 sides. Okay. 17 and
Yeah.
So there's a couple of isosceles triangles, two angles at the same time. And it is because it has two of the same angles. How do you know it has two of the same angles? So how would you, so you have to
Did you do the long lines though?
No, you've got exactly the right idea. So you know, just tell me this is a straight line, you know what they use. And then you know
So what angle?
I'm done. Do you have preferential treatment with that?
this one will be for each of those. Those two are the same. And then work out either this one or this one. Right. Okay then. So,
Did you have a breast?
sorry to stop you. I would say sorry for making you do maths, but we're always apologising. Yeah, I was explaining to you here. I could have given you something that wasn't maths to do, but I wouldn't have been able to mark it. I also did the classic thing and did it again, where I said, "Yep, you've got that right," and then someone else actually had an insight that made me realise yes, I had an oversight. But the key thing you saw there, first of all, is that maths is going to be more and more about explaining and literacy as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to that. But hopefully also showed you how the RAG method works. Okay, I think I got round to most of you, and I showed you, I can tell you when you got it right. I can use the yellow to give you a hint of where to look to get the right answer. I didn't use the red very often, and that's probably the key thing. This one here is going to be the one that's going to intimidate students the most, so use it the most sparingly. So what I wanted to talk to you about, I said, so we looked at the positives, you got immediate feedback, gave a focus for dialogue when we're having a discussion, gave me something where you're reviewing your work, you say, okay, yeah, I know what I did wrong. We can use it in assessed work, so if we're marking a test, we can kind of use the same thing. We can do it during a live test, just with the yellow. If we've got a class that are, let's say, less confident doing assessments, so maybe not a top set class, but someone who's less confident, you just say, look, have another look at that, have another look at that. Use the yellow in isolation, or use the green to reassure students who look like they're having a bit of a panic. And so it increases their enthusiasm, and I hope you felt that as well. So you've had a go, okay, you've been marked. How did it make you feel? Did anyone want to share? That was one thing that I have not been able to conduct a lot of research with. Obviously, a lot of the classes who I work with enjoyed it, but I would have loved that, and I just wondered, as perhaps other people who don't teach maths, who teach different subjects, how it made you feel. How would it work in your subject as well? Because I know that maths is quite easy. There's usually a right answer, and then we can tweak the reasoning and the working. But if you're marking something that's more essay-based or more opinion-based, how will that work? But I think it applies, because you can say, green, you've made that point well, it follows a structure. You don't have to highlight the whole paragraph. You can say that structure's there. Yellow, you can just say, well, I've just glanced over that, and you've kind of jumped a bit, where your spelling isn't there, or you've used the wrong word. Red, we need to look at that again. Science, I don't think there's any scientists in here, but again, science lends itself to this fairly well, right and wrong, and as well as the reasoning side of things. I hope that if you were somebody who was like, oh, he's giving us some maths work to do, and it made you feel even a little bit uncomfortable, that the fact that I was then coming around supporting you and giving you some concrete feedback, as well as working on your work, helped. What do you have to watch out for? This is my own personal experience. This year I've been working with our local primary schools a lot, working with their students, teaching in their classrooms, and I did this with them. I gave them some level 6 work, worked around, they all did a brilliant job, lots of green highlighting everywhere, and they all looked horrified. This little group of about 20 year sixes cowering almost in a corner, and what had they done wrong? Well, down the road, they used green for needs improvement and they used pink for purpose. And as a result, this poor group of students thought they got everything wrong. So it is important that you have a dialogue with your new incoming students about what the process is, what it means. What else? Regularity. You have to do it regularly. My biggest mistake is I sometimes don't have these to hand and I'm working around the class doing exactly what I normally do and I haven't got these in my pocket. So it's really important you get into a habit of having them to hand, not taking them home with you as well, because you've always got them to hand. And the follow-up's important. It's not sufficient, I think, just to have that red, amber, green from the live classwork. You follow it up with looking over the book and doing a summative comment every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however your school runs it. That's live rag marking. Okay, and I say that's what I've been doing this year. And hello to Meg, who's been doing something a lot more in depth.
Thanks. I don't know if you're like me, that when I was thinking about becoming a teacher, I thought back to sort of movies and films and TV programmes I've watched, Grange Hill, etc. They always made marking look like fun. People would go home, sitting on their decking or wherever they were on holiday, nice bottle of wine, and they'd make it look like it was fun. And I think when I first started in my PGCE year and as an NQT, it wasn't too bad because I had such a small timetable and I had time to go away and spend a lot of time marking, in quite in-depth marking. Then it got to I've only actually been teaching, this is my 3rd year teaching, and it was my first full-year timetable last year. And it was so overwhelming. Now I've got however many classes, 30 students in each class. And I have to say, it was taking me about 3 evenings to mark a class set of books. And obviously when you work that out how many classes you have, that's a lot of hours, and that doesn't fit into your PPA. And I don't need a maths teacher to tell me that doesn't fit into my PPA. So basically what happened was I had an observation from my line manager and Tim Matthews, and they both came in and said, observation, we won't use outstanding, we won't use good, but they were pleased with what happened in there. But the one thing they both picked up on was that they said, you seem to be doing so much marking, and where is it getting you? I mean, if you open the books, purple everywhere, that's our colour of choice, purple everywhere. And then the students weren't really understanding what it meant by you need to be responsive to marking. And all I get was, okay, you need to extend this, thanks miss, smiley face. And then they wouldn't do anything with it. So I'd spent probably 3 times as long marking their books or a piece of work than they spent doing it. And that was just ridiculous. So what was I looking for? They made me a sort of part of my appraisal go away and think about what am I looking for from marking. Well, I needed students to identify what they'd done well, a bit like what Simon was saying earlier on, what needed improving and what wasn't right at all. Okay, I wanted them to have a better understanding of what the exam board was looking for, as well as what I was marking. Greater use of specialist terminology and technical language, and meaningful response. No more smiley faces, no more yes misses. So, a bit like what Simon was saying a second ago, it does take work. You cannot just go into a classroom and say, right, we're rag marking, this is how it's done, there you go. I realised that with my students, they were going to need scaffolding. And for business studies in year 10, the highest mark questions that we have are 9 markers. And that's what they needed the most help with. So I started off by breaking down questions for them. And in business studies, it's always a lot of kind of things that you have to state something, and then you always have to link it back to the case study. And they were having real troubles with this. So I started off by giving them the case study and this sheet, and then I asked them to pick a point. I gave them the connective, and then they had to link it to the case study. Okay, so you'll see on there, kind of, that student did that quite well. That was my starting point with them. The next thing that I did, I gave them a 9-mark question. It's in the top students were averaging about 5 or 6 out of 9, with the weaker students getting about 3 or 4 out of 9. They weren't using the case to show application, they weren't developing their arguments, nor giving me an evaluation. and this is quite significant when you work out a couple of marks in an exam at GCSE, is the difference between a grade. So I then went back a step and developed this modelling strategy a little bit more before I started implementing that. I started to try and implement that so what approach to get the students thinking a little bit more in detail about what they were writing. Again, just take a look at that for a second. You can see now that by moving from that first step to now, there is so much more detail in the students' work than there was originally. They're starting to understand what I'm looking for. Then, okay, so the next thing I did was I gave them all a basic 9-mark structure. Okay, I think we forget sometimes that we don't come with all the necessary skills, and we do need it broken down quite a lot, and you need to do that over a succession of lessons. So I gave them a 9-marker, and then I gave them ragging on it, so red, amber, green, same way as Simon did in this sense. The red does mean something's wrong, green something good, amber something not quite right or needs improving. The way we've done it in business studies is we've actually created a really simple, well I think it's simple, but RAGS system. It's not quite the same in maths where something's definitively right or it's wrong. So we don't have that luxury, no offence maths, of it being quite that simplistic for us. So I broke it down into red, amber, green with the fact that red was something it could be as basic as a spelling mistake, but essentially that is still wrong, so it needed to be red. Okay, it could be you're actually not answering this question at all, what are you doing? Red. Okay, it could be that you haven't made a valid point, doesn't make sense, or it could be you haven't linked this case study, but that was all red because it was all something in the exam they wouldn't get marks for. Okay, so we had to account for that as being red in the eyes of the examiner. Ambers were things like, it was usually that they've made a good point, but they could go a little bit further. Again, that's so what? Okay, so what? How is this important? How does it link to this case study? And then green, good things like I've used a definition. And kind of like what Simon was saying earlier, that overwhelmingness of having red on your page, I could read the most terrible answer, but I will be able to find somewhere to put green on that paper. So it could be that they've put a definition in there, a key term, even as simple as something like overdraft, they've mentioned it. Okay, I can put green, well done. And that's that building confidence for them again. Don't think I've ever given a student all red on a piece of work. So that's kind of how our RAG system works. But alongside the RAG system, I also was quite interested in learning maths. So I gave every lesson these students now have these learning maths on their table. Okay. Don't let the spelling mistakes, don't mark any red on there for me. And these were kind of all an implementation of things that we've been doing in lesson. So the part in the middle, I actually have up in my classroom. And we'd had a specialist speaker come in and talk to us about the importance of students speaking in the language of their subject and sounding like an expert. Because we tend to have tendency to, students will give you an answer, and because they've said something you think, you can take that with you, because students have said something you think sounds right, like they understand something or they know something, you praise them for it. Say, good, that's right, move on, next person, what do you know? And actually, if you were asking them to write that in the exam, they wouldn't get very many marks for that. So I put these bubbles on my wall in my classroom, and now every time the students give me a verbal response, they have to use those bubbles to start their sentences, and that becomes so familiar with them that when they're writing that in the exam, I can say to them, would you say it like that to me anymore? Actually, no, I wouldn't say it like that to you, miss, so why are you writing it like that? And we kind of turned it on its head a little bit. Also, I've put words I cannot bear to see. So, for example, students say, it's a good idea, it's a bad idea. Okay, that to me is not good, it is bad. So I've tried to give them alternative words that they could use in their essays. Try to give them some more specialist terminology that I would be really pleased to see in their answers. So then when I give them back their answers, they will then be able to identify why something was red, why something was green, and why something was amber. And I think that's the importance, is that they have to understand it, and it's kind of the eureka moment when it clicks with them. That's great, but it does take time for them to be able to do that. So if I've got some examples of again, started off with dots before I went to highlights. Full school functional highlighters. Okay, so as I said, the first thing that I did to them was I gave them back their piece of work, and they had to go through the rag marking and identify what bits were red, which bits were amber, and which bits were green. And then on the next sheet of paper, they had to put that at the top. Now, they might not have identified every single reason why I got red, or every single reason why I got green or amber, but that's okay, because they only have to make a couple of improvements to their answer for us to see the change in their marks. And I think that's the important part. So what I did next was gave them the rag sheet. I did that part, and then in green pen, which is another policy here, I don't know other schools that use the green pen policy, but they had to rewrite their answer in green using not only what they've just received back from the rag, but using that learning mat as well. And again, so the quality of the answers that I saw once they'd been writing them back in green using the mat and the rag was a difference of about 2 marks per student. Okay, so have you got Amy's example there? If you turn over to her answer, that she's written a green on the back, but now she goes to an 8 out of 9. And I'm quite harsh at marking. Okay, I don't give students 9 out of 9 very easily, and 8 out of 9 very easily. Bearing in mind she's a year 10 student, so she has another year to go before she sits her examination. That's quite powerful. Obviously then, repeat the process. As I was saying, this isn't something that can happen in isolation. The kids will moan. They will moan about having to do it. It's not always the most fun thing. But when they start seeing their marks changing, that's when they buy into it. Okay? And you have to stick with it, with their moans. We've just sat on mock examinations for business, and that's when the learning mats and everything has obviously been taken away. So it will now be interesting to see how well that has had once I've removed these tools from the students. So I've got a number of students here that have said, I asked them honestly, and kind of across the spectrum of students as well, how have you found this RAG process? I've got one student here, I feel that RAG has helped me evaluate my work and take that into my exams and get top marks. It makes me feel more confident about my writing. And Chloe pretty much is now, I think she probably started the year at C grade in business. I would say now I would feel confident if she sat the GCSE this year, she'd be getting it. I have another student here from RAG, has helped me a lot since Miss has introduced it to us. I feel more confident in writing my 9-month answers. This is probably a C grade student who's now confident and moved into a B grade. Okay? And again, some other students there that have commented on that. Where are we at now? So the students are using the maths in every lesson and every test, other than mocks. They're learning to be more self-reflective and take more ownership, and I think that's the important, is kids only buy into things when they feel they've got some control over it. Okay, I was getting quite sick and tired of giving students back books and all they care about is seeing the grade. So often when I'm using RAG as well, I take away the grading and then they RAG it and they rewrite it and then they get a mark. That's quite helpful as well. Students are actively seeking how to watch their marks increase. Students that were achieving 5 or 6 are now averaging 8 out of 9. On 3 9-mark questions in the exam, that's a whole grade difference. So if I can get all students up by 1 grade, or 1 mark in those 9-mark questions, that's going to be a grade in their GCSE. Students who are at 3 or 4 border are now getting 5 or 6, so another year of this, and we're really on our way to success. Fingers crossed. What I've also done for you is, I was really interested to see how this worked across the school. Because obviously I know how it works for me in business. It's been quite interesting watching Simon how that works in maths. But I think you have to go away to your subjects and it will work differently for everyone. So I've got, first of all, anyone in here, ethics teachers, right, okay. I've got some ethics examples. The first page tells you what the questions were and the ragging criteria that the teacher used. The next page gives you a piece of student work, which you can rag. And then the last page is the teacher who's ragged it herself, so you can compare maybe how you would have ragged it to what the teacher has done as well. You can do that. You can do it in a pair, guys. They're all different. Sorry, I've got one.
If Christians believe the human rights movement will not Christ.
Oh, so there's no disagreeing about disagree.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
One more figure.
I mean, just because you use red, amber, green doesn't eliminate that you can still use a pen. I still have to sometimes put a word or 2 words comment next to my colours as well to give them a little bit more support with that. There's 2 on there, she's gone. Oh yeah, I like that. It's this one, isn't it? This I think it's this one. Sorry.
I know, it needs to be spellings about abortion,
Yeah, that's totally
they're all different human rights.
Yeah, you've got the same question.
I'll read the abortion one.
Yeah, we need the other question over here as well. As well as Christians
have the same question.
Right, yeah, I think you might have some different questions. You all have different questions, but does some of them not match up?
Go
Kira. Okay, moving on. Oh dear. Anyway, have a look at how she's marked it as an example of how someone else in a different subject has used it. Thanks for coming in, subject member. I've also got here, anyone French or Spanish? Okay, we're all in the same boat with this one then, absolutely no idea what we're marking. But I've got an example here of a French student where they have an A- or A grade answer. There's grading criteria, it's then been RAGed, and then you'll see how that student has then moved to an A star as well. So just another example of how it's used.
This one works.
In French A level though. So just like, I do speak French, but where's the more she says, be clear.
Do chores.
That's very honest,
Very
What did you procrastinating?
Usually, it's double
Yes, well done for those of you that spotted they've used the rag the wrong way round on that one. Or different way round, shall I say.
No, we're trying to translate. What's EUX?
Oh, EUX, what's the context?
I go.
And that is wit, isn't
Really
it?
different.
Yes,
It's
fun every day.
every day.
We about 80% of that.
Usually it's a plural or something. Where is it? It's a EUX. Oh, then.
Oh, then.
Yeah. Good luck with it. I remember what you I think, yeah.
Have you seen class?
Yes, she said last weekend. Swimming pool. Ambience was super. My sister was very interested in
Justice Revolution last weekend.
She seemed I would like to
Okay guys, we stop you there because obviously I do realise our French is quite limited and my Spanish is even less so, more so even. I think I can work out about 80% of the French one, but A-level was quite a long time ago. You're mocking me now, because you're thinking it was a long time ago for you, it was even longer for me. I think that, again, I was so sceptical when I hear about initiatives, because quite frankly I get sick to the back teeth of hearing about another initiative coming through, and sometimes quite sceptical about the reasoning behind the initiative. Is it because it's an Ofsted inspection is due, and is that why we're doing it? And we're rushing through it, we rush the kids through it, we hardly ever know whether we're coming or going, and if it's not working, the next one comes through. But I have to say, this is one that I will absolutely be sticking with, because it's become a lot more meaningful. The kids get a lot more from it, and not just that, it's for a marking class set of books and take you an hour, not 3 evenings. And I think that's the trick, is you've got to be a lot more selective about what, when and where you're choosing to mark. I found myself marking notes in books, so essentially I was marking my own work, which is quite ridiculous, and we just don't have time for that. So I would definitely say that RAG is a really effective tool, and across the subjects. I mean, is there anyone in here who thinks that RAG isn't that applicable to what they teach, or they couldn't see how it could be used? Has anyone got any kind of worries about RAG marking that I might be able to alleviate for you? No. Does anyone go away and use RAG? No.
I think
You're learning maths.
Yeah.
I have to say they're really, again, really powerful in lessons. And yeah, the kids, they're kind of like their support mechanism. And when I gave a test and they didn't have them, they asked for them. And I don't know whether, as I say, at the moment I'm waiting to see what their mock results are, to see whether that's a positive thing that they like using them, or they've become too reliant. So we'll see.
I think in English, because of the type of excuse me, use model, type of what you do, you've got to be more focused with students and say, well, you know, I'm looking at this for stone punctuation and grammar,
Yeah.
or I'm looking at this for seeing problem interpretation. When we get it all the time, we try to mark for all the things we could mark. You know, so I think identifying the focus that you're marking for,
Yeah.
and then making sure students know that's what
Is that-
you remember from them.
Exactly. I mean, I find this a lot harder at A-level than I do at GCSE. And when you've got longer based essays, I mean, you know, with business you get to a 40-mark answer, and I suppose the same in English, I find it a lot more challenging at that level. It's something we need to start from the beginning next year. But maybe what you're saying, you can actually change it up. RAG doesn't have to stagnate, doesn't have to stay still, it can be quite flexible. And you might say to them, right, this piece of work, this is your RAG system. The next piece of work, we can change it slightly, and it will be something else I'm looking for. And then hopefully, if that again is implemented across time, all of those skills will come into a piece of work.
And as to say, if you did want to go away and start RAG marking, we provided you with the high notice to do so. So hopefully, you've got no excuses on Monday.